Yes. Okay, admit, I need to open.
Hi, Ray.
Hey, hello, Emmy. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm really good. I'm really, really good. I'm trying to figure out how to open the waiting room.
Oh.
Allow participants to unmute themselves. Allow participants to rename themselves. You have disabled the waiting room. Awesome. So there is no waiting room. Everyone can come right in. So happy to see you.
Good to see you too.
I'm really happy we're doing this work. And welcome, everybody. Oh, there you go. Hi, Michelle, Chris, Megan, Sue, everyone. Welcome, welcome. Welcome, everyone. Let's see the time. Thanks for jumping in a little bit earlier so we could get a head start and then have that close to a full hour to be together. Thumbs up to all. Thank you. And I say this every time we're getting together. I want to say everyone's name. I'm going to stop saying names because the images are popping up faster than I can actually say, and I don't want to leave anyone out. I appreciate every single person that is here today. Thank you for making the time and for investing it in being here. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So we're going to just take a couple more minutes to allow for some people to trickle in. And then I am also going to open sacred space. And I feel that that is also time for people to come in as we're opening sacred space. It is 7 p.m. I will be ending sharply at 8 p.m. I'm going to honor your time. It is interesting to see everyone in those so many different places. And what it makes me think of is like all these years, the last 16 years I've been teaching big groups. And it is really clear to me all these years that everyone comes from their own place. It's like everyone comes with their own memories or emotions or what was happening at home. And it's really nice because now I just get to see it. I see where you're coming from, literally, and where you're at. So cool. I like it. From couches to beaches, from mountain houses and cabins to, oh, even Nina. Hey, Nina. My wife is here too. Awesome. So welcome. I will start with opening sacred space and we will jump into talking a little bit more about shamanism today. So I invite you to close your eyes and bring your attention inward. If that feels okay for you, you can keep your eyes open if you'd rather. But as you bring your attention inward, you can bring one hand to your heart. To the winds of the south, great Amaru, great serpent, be here with us. Wrap your coils of light around us. Allow us to shed our skin. Teach us how to shed our skin, to let go of the past, to heal. Teach us how to feel Mother Earth like you do, belly to belly, connected with her. So we are grounded, so we are present in every step we take. Be here, Amaru. Horpichai. To the winds of the west, Otorongo great Jaguar, be here. Pace the ethers, connect us all. Allow your heartbeat to be the pulse that connects us. Allow your heartbeat to echo in our heartbeat. Allow our heartbeat to be attuned with you, to have no fear in this world or the next. Be here, great Jaguar. Horpichai. To the winds of the north, sweet hummingbird, colimbri, be here with us. Bring your sweetness and nectar. Allow us, remind us to fly backward, to go and heal the past, and then to move forward, to find the nectar in everything we do, to be able to find that ability to move left and right, to move freely, to find the flowers, to find the nectar, to be in sweetness. To the winds of the north, to the winds of the east, condor and eagle, be here, soar above us. Allow us to fly above, to liberate ourselves from what is small, to unentangle ourselves from all the emotional everyday burdens. Condor, allow us to rise above and see the greater picture of our life. Allow us to feel connected to the Great Spirit as you are always connected, flying wing to wing with the Great One. Allow us to see the greater picture of life on the earth and in our personal life, to see with clarity and discernment, to make better choices from that higher place. Horpichai. Pachamama, Dulce Mamita, sweet Mother Earth, thank you. Thank you for holding us. Thank you for forgiving us. Thank you for understanding us. Thank you for all your gifts, for your forests, your rivers, your seas, your oceans. Thank you for your beautiful vegetable gardens, your flowers, for your fruit trees, for everything you give to sustain us. Thank you for giving the elements that allows us to build the body. Thank you for giving us the nourishment to sustain this body. Thank you for giving us a home to return this body to. Horpichai. Intitaita, Mama Kia, Father, Son, Grandmother Moon, thank you for being here. Father, Son, thank you for the rays of sweet light that brings light to everything in our life. Thank you for the life force that brings life to us and all the plants and all the animals and everything that exists. Thank you for your flames. Bring us to these flames so we can burn old contracts and change our ways. Mama Kia, Grandmother Moon, thank you for your wisdom. Thank you for always reminding us the sweetness of the girl, the beauty of the woman, the wisdom of the grandmother. Thank you for giving us that quality of reflecting, being able to see with sweetness and affection and heal what we need to heal. Horpichai. And inhale your hands to your heart in Anjali Mudra. And allow for your chin to come towards your heart, to bow to your heart, to thank yourself for everything that you do for your healing and your evolution. And just take a moment to acknowledge yourself, to allow to feel grateful for everything that you've done that's helped yourself and others. And allow for yourself, as you're thanking yourself, to also be the receiver of that emotion, to receive gratefulness, to receive that nourishment. And if you wish to, only if you wish to, you can bow deeper to any god or goddess that you walk with in your life, that you're informed by, guided by. Any power animal, any saint, any avatar. I bow to St. Francis as a guide for my entire life, and to Christ. I bow to Shiva, the great Lord of life and death. And I bow to Hanuman, the great monkey god that has taught me service. I bow to Shakti and Mother Mary. Gently inhale and rise, and gently open your eyes. Namaste. Welcome all once again. Welcome. So, surprise, surprise, today I want to talk a little bit about shamanism. And some of you I see are already in our Wednesdays shamanic series every Wednesday, 7 to 8. And last Wednesday, we started talking a little bit about shamanism, and I wanted to share it with everyone. I want to talk a little bit about each and every one of us, essentially. And I want to just go back to saying, regardless of what we mentioned last week, I just want to recap a little bit about shamanism, because I feel at some point I went back 20 years. And when I went back 20 years to what I used to think what shamanism is, I've come to, of course, being a shaman now, I have a different opinion. I'm kind of a little bit more informed than I used to be. So I want to say that one of the things that I felt was that shamanism, and especially being in a place of, in a very difficult place in my life, in a very hard moment of my life, or a few hard years, I should say, in my life, as I was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, and given only a few months to live, I was devastated. And I won't stay there too long because there's no drama there or any story, because I do not have cancer. I'm cancer-free. I'm actually a lot happier in my life. I'm actually easy an inch taller than I used to be when I was 40. And that all is within all that healing that took place, within all that self and arising and allowing myself and finding new ways of being and new ways of expressing myself in new ways and connecting with life and engaging with the things that I do. So on the shamanism topic, I felt and I thought that shamans were these men and women that were really blessed with something out of this world, and they were men and women of superpowers. And that only some possessed that, or some were really gone through some trainings that were finally allowed to have that. And the rest of us had none of the above. We were just, your common mortals, and we had to deal with life and its difficulties, and we could not do anything about it. I also thought that shamanism was something that was almost extinct and very hard to find, or maybe even impossible to find. When I was diagnosed, one of the first things that I did was I lived in Athens, Greece, and I left Athens and I went to the northern part of Athens to the Oracle of Delphi, and I sat in meditation on that temple. And I received this beautiful message that was either from the gods of Olympus or from inside me. I heard it inside me, and it said, "He who travels learns or dies learned." And I want to say that, there's quite an awakening in those near-death experiences we've probably all heard of. When you're near to death, there's a lot of ahas that happen. And that was near to death. I had 90 days, and it was already a week that had passed, so I was counting 83 days. And I was pretty devastated and afraid and disappointed and panicked, and I had a lot of emotions. But one of the most important emotion that came up for me was that I knew as a 16 and 17-year-old and 18-year-old that what I really wanted to do is become a shaman in my life. Because I had read these books by Carlos Castaneda. Does anyone know Carlos Castaneda? Let me see your hands doing like this. All right, okay, cool. So when I heard this saying from the Oracle of Delphi, which said, if you travel, you will learn, and if anything, you will heal or you will die knowing, I really, really loved that, because what had come up is that I didn't know what I was here to know. I hadn't learned shamanism. I didn't become a healer, and I missed out on that. So that was one of the biggest panics. So I decided, actually I left that night from the temple. I stayed at this place in this hotel in Delphi, which overlooked this beautiful valley. And I'm realizing this next morning after this that I need to travel. I probably need to travel to learn. I realized that I'm looking at the valley where the cave of Hades is. This is the actual cave of Hades, where people go down, the ancient Greeks would go down, you go into this cave, and there's this underwater river where they would give the dead and put the coins in their eyes and send them to the other side. And I'm like, great. I'm like, here, I'm dying, and I'm, I guess, at the right place. It's like, and because that happened, there's one sentence from the book of Carlos Castaneda came up, where Don Juan is telling Carlos, when death knocks on your door, change your address. And this is this one sentence from 20 plus years, just that I probably had not understood at the time I read it. I probably just passed over it. I didn't know exactly what he was talking about. That was given to me that morning. Between that meditation and the oracle's inspiration, and between that, I realized that what I had to do is get up and get out of there. Because even if I tried to find why I was having cancer, what was happening, was it in the food, was it in the city, was it in the polluted city of Athens, was it in the fact that I smoked or that I had alcohol, it would be really hard to really discern what was what. I mean, kind of obviously it was all of those things, but also what was the one thing was really hard to find. So I realized that that saying meant take yourself out of this URL, if you want, this address, this electronic address where your karma is coming at, and this karma is happening at this address. If you're being this way, this is what's happening to this Ray's life. He's headed towards death. Great guy. I wasn't feeling bad. I didn't have any guilt trips. I lived a good life and I was an honest guy, but it was not what I was supposed to do. I was not doing what my Dharma was. I was not doing my soul's purpose. And it was a great, great realization. So within a week, I got a backpack and I got up and left. Came to the States. I went down through Mexico. I eventually found my way to Peru. And I want to say, when I left, I thought that finding a shaman is something almost impossible because shamans don't exist anymore. It took me actually 3, 4, 5 years to come back to that realization, because for those 3, 4, 5 years traveling through Mexico and still to my life, I kept on meeting shamans. They were everywhere in Mexico. They're everywhere in Peru. And it dawned on me eventually that's like, well, the shamans do not exist. The only place that there are no shamans is Europe and the United States, or maybe Canada too, the Western world. And then it dawned on me 3 or 4 years later that said, wait a minute, there was a witch hunt that happened. Shamanism was actually purposefully and very carefully, methodically pushed out for centuries. And I won't stay there for too long because I have a happy story to say, really. But there's these historical facts that are really interesting, and I think without getting political about them, we know that in the Middle Ages, or what else known as the Dark Ages, there was 3 things that were persecuted: the feminine, animals, and magic. And you can put them in any way you want. They were all persecuted. And actually in the 1700s, I'll repeat this, I referred to it last Wednesday, I think it was 1740, there was an all church and all governments gathering. I think it was in Switzerland. Correct me if I'm wrong. If anyone Googles it, please do tell me. But there was a gathering to talk on 2 subjects, to decide if animals and if women have a soul. So I give it like a couple breaths to this. This is yesterday, 1740. This is yesterday. It took 24 hours to kick out the subject, animals do not have a soul. And it took 30 days to finally, don't hold your breath, girls, women, you have a soul, you're okay. And of course, a lot of things happened. Now, I feel, and again, I say I don't want to be too serious about it. It is, in some way, this whole thing is tragic. And it's tragic on a mega scale because it's our history. And not only is it our history, but for all of us today, and maybe I'll speak in the eye, for me, it was all my subconscious and way that I thought of life was already prescribed back then. Those 3 elements were taken away. Although I come from a matriarchic family where my grandmother was the head of the family and my mother was, and I have an awesome sister who is an environmentalist and an awesome scientist, etc. I still thought in the world that I knew in the world that was persecuted. I've come to all this realization and clarity, especially because when I arrived at Peru, and here's where we're coming to shamanism, and before I go into the Peruvian shamanism and share that piece with you, I want to say that after 3-4 years of working with the shamans and constantly finding shamans, I remembered that old thought of mine, that shamans are a rarity that's almost extinct. And I also remembered that, oh, there are these superhuman beings, because of all of you who raise your hands, Carlos Castaneda almost describes Don Juan, the sorcerer, the shaman, as a superhuman being. I've discovered that shamanism is alive and has been alive through and through. In Australia, they're called the Aboriginals. In Europe, we remember the Druids, Maryland being a great one. When we go down to Africa, we have the Zulus and several other tribes who still hold shamanism really strongly. And then you go through Mexico, Central America, and South America, curanderos, brujos, ayahuasqueros, San Pedritos. There's like several, there's dozens of kinds of shamanism. And different lineages and different knowledges that have been passed down through centuries. So shamanism is beautiful and it's alive and it is really thriving and it never stopped, other than mostly the Western Northern Hemisphere. When I dove deeper into trying to understand what was these superhuman powers that they had, especially because I was already working in 4 or 5 years into working with several shamans, and I'll name Don Francisco, Don Sebastian. Several of you have seen pictures of these Cairos with a beautiful funny hats, and they're red, and some of you I see have already received the blessings and met Don Sebastian, who I brought many times to the United States, who is a father, a brother, an ally, an amazing witness to my life, and a comrade, as he calls me, through all this. What I found is that their superhuman power, and that's what I did that year. I went down and I said, I'll come out of the jungle only when I find out what is that most awesome, the most powerful tool, what is the power. And I dared, if it's okay for me, I decided this, what did Christ use? How was he, if I'm allowed to use the word, I'll use the word healer. How was he such a great healer, and what was his power? Because I started understanding that this was parallel, the ability to heal that the shamans have, that Christ had. And I did come out, and I come out from the jungle, and I knew it very well, all the way to my bone marrow, that the superhuman power that they possessed, that Christ possessed, that these shamans possess, is the power of affection. Affection, 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 deep affection. Affection without limits, affection without thinking about it, without weighing it, without exchanging it, just being a well, a spring of affection. And I realized also, as I worked with the Cairos, that that was their power. That I received with them a tremendous amount of acceptance, admiration, and affection. And also, as I came and I was accepted with these emotions as my immediate environment, I didn't have to do anything. I didn't have to prove myself worthy of that affection. I didn't have to prove myself worthy of admiration. They just had it. They had it, and they still have it. They're this spring well of all these emotions or sensations, and they let me have that constantly without any hindrance. There was one thing, every single one of them, regardless of what lineage they were, because I've worked with 3 lineages of shamans, right? The Cairos, which is most of the work that we bring in through the Jaguar path. The curandero, which is the work that came from my beloved first teacher, Don Manuel, who we practice a lot of yoga with, and many of you may have heard stories. And the ayahuasquero in the jungle, who helped me with the medicine of spirit ayahuasca. They all had something common, although they didn't talk to each other and didn't know each other. They eventually did meet each other. I brought some of these lineages together for some dinners and gatherings. They all said one thing. I said, I am very sick and I'm dying and I want you to heal me. And they all looked at me, in these independent times that I met them, and said, we can't do that. What we can do is I can train you to be a shaman and then you could heal yourself. And while that in the beginning felt like I don't have time, now I don't have time to do the training And before I finish the training and get my certification, I'm probably going to be running out of time. And obviously we're here today and it seems like I had the time. Not only did I have the time, but that exact instruction that stop giving your power to someone outside yourself and telling them to heal you because you're unable, you don't have enough of what it takes of the magic, or you don't have enough of the connection, or you don't have enough of knowledge. Because that's what was in my head when I was saying to someone else, you have to be the doctor, I don't know enough. That was not truth. Because the innate, deepest power of the healer is of affection, is of caring, is of wanting to serve others. And I had plenty of that, only I didn't believe in it. And when I was made to believe in it, I awakened it. I activated the shaman within. And though I've learned a lot of tools that necessitated to learn how does a rattle work, how do these stones in the mesa work, how do the bells work, how do crystals work, how do feathers work, I learned a lot of tools, but through and through and through, the realization, one on top, one after the other, was that the realization is that we, each one of us, every person on the screen, we innately are shamans. And it is about switching and changing how we feel about ourselves in the world. And that changing is about changing the blueprint, the paradigm we live by. So each one of us, we all live in a paradigm. Paradigm, you know I love to do this. Paradigm is a Greek word. Paradigm is a Greek word and it means example. So we live by an example. And there's this characteristic that we have as beings that when we started getting together, when we first became Homo sapien, when that shift turned from Neanderthal to Homo sapien, that's when we started gathering around fires. And I talked a little bit about the shamans being the first ones to light the fire and bring people together. And the more we were together back then, we started cultivating the understanding that if I am in the circle of people, in a tribe, and I belong, and I am close to the fire, I will survive the night. Now, some people were not ready to make that leap from being Neanderthal to becoming Homo sapien. So their, if you want, animal instinct or whatever it was made them say, I'm not staying here. And they would leave the tribe and they would disappear from larger predators. The next day, no one would see them. So centuries after centuries, we found out that if I'm not within the tribe, I will not survive. And because we had that thought, that's why we're still here as a species, because not all species are still here. There's species that totally disappeared, and we could have easily been one of those species. But we're not, because we had this fight or flight mechanism, and we understood that if we're away from the tribe, we will not survive. And that was a blessing, but it's also a damnation, because what happens now is that when the tribes in Europe and in the Western world, in Europe, pushed away magic, brought down feminism, brought down the animals and the magic of all that, and the magic itself, we all went along. First of all, not to be put in the pyre. We said, yep, no, we have no relationship to magic. We agree. We don't know about the feminine. And animals are called the beasts. We're either going to make them work for us or we're going to eat them. Each one of these subjects can be a 10-year training. Just bring it all home. It's just like we lived by that paradigm and we accepted that paradigm, because if we didn't, we would be kicked out of that tribe. Did I say we lived? We live by that paradigm. And of course, there's been a beautiful new age, if I can use that word again, after the 80s, new age, the 70s and 80s, there's another wave coming along that says enough of this, for women's equality, for women's rights, for women to be leaders, for women to be prime ministers in so many countries, for animal rights, for animals to be free, for animals to, and we're slowly, and watch this, we are not, the Jaguar path is not the only shamanic school in the United States. More and more, I'm so happy to see more people are bringing shamanism of all sorts, from Africa, from England, from Peru, etc., from South America. So all these are returning back. And as they're returning, we're creating new tribes. And when I say sometimes, let me say, oh, new communities, if the word tribe doesn't work for you. What I discovered was this place, and this is what I didn't talk about last Wednesday, and I'm going to talk about today, the Cairo Nation people, the Cairos. So the Cairos, these beautiful people that wear the funny hats and the red, they were basically the Inca medicine men and medicine women. They were the doctors of the Incas. They healed not only the royal family, but also each shaman, each Cairo, each Paco is a specific word for shaman in Quechua, in their language. Each Paco had a village to take care of. And there's a moment in the mid-1400s, parallel to the Dark Ages, the same agents, the conquistadors are arriving, bringing all this idea that, hey, you guys don't know about this, but there is no magic, feminism should be suppressed, and animals are beasts. They're bringing in this new idea. And when the Cairos saw the conquistadors arriving, they didn't even need a rattle to see what was coming. And they said, namaste away from us. And they took off and they went up into the Andes. They left the sacred valley from 10 to 12,000 feet. And they went way up in the mountains, way up in the Andes at 16 to 18,000 feet. And they established the Cairo Nation villages. When they first left, there were 3 villages. They've stayed there for 500 years, protecting magic, protecting the feminine, protecting the relationship with the animals, protecting a way of being, a paradigm of thinking, and a belief system that is actually so much closer to reality. That yes, the feminine, the feminine, the feminine, the first thing we bow to is the feminine, because we are all born from Mother Earth. And each and every one of us is born from our mother, from a woman. We are born from the woman, and the first thing we need to do is appreciate and bow to that and thank that and be in gratitude for that and bring thanks, and then be throughout all the stages, from childhood to young, youthful to adulthood to later on in life, be in correct relationship with our mothers and with Mother Earth. They brought us back and they remind us. So they're, for me, if you ask me, they're the first feminists. They're feminists before feminism was even necessary for them, whenever it was. It's an actual way of being. Of course you respect the feminine. You would not be here without Mother Earth. You would not be here without your mother. So the feminine is the most sacred of all things to bow to. And then, of course, we have animals. They realized that looking at animals, they started realizing how they can hunt, how they can trap, how they can find their food, how they can heal wounds, and then so much more. They started realizing all these lessons, and watching the animals, they started bringing in dances, dancing like the animals, bringing the condor dance, bringing the serpent dances, connecting to Mother Earth, understanding the qualities of hummingbird, understanding the qualities of the jaguar. They created this blueprint that gives them, I think I'm going to run out of, excuse me, I think I'm going to run out of electricity. Thank you. They created this paradigm, and you know, I feel that in some way it's almost like this paradigm that was created back then kind of fell apart now. And that we're almost in the space that some of you know that I found myself, Nina and I found ourselves here with a backpack of clothes, and that's all we had, right? And it's like, oh, we're here, and now we're kind of trapped here, and that's all I have. And that's what happened last time to me. 16 years ago, I left Greece with a backpack of clothes, and I had to redo my paradigm. I have to I had to find a new way of being, and I feel the same thing again. Only I feel this time I'm not alone. I feel it's happening to all of us. We're not all trapped in Costa Rica. You're all welcome to come, but we're all trapped in this place where now it looks like we don't know what's exactly happening. What is this new thing we're setting up? And that's why I feel shamanism now more than ever is important. And what I share from what I learned from these people is now more important than ever, because the first thing they did is they established a compass so we could get our bearings. And notice when I opened Sacred Space, I said, South, serpent, teaching us how to shed our skin and let go of the past. We have these ideas in the West because that was missing, that when I'm traumatized, I have it for life. Well, this is what the Cairos have to say about this. There's trauma that are really, really hard, and I respect and bow to every person's traumas. And I've had my share that probably was part of driving me to cancer too. So I know. I bow and respect that. But the shamans say, we can actually shed our skin. We can let go of these old traumas and have new skin and reappear as new. And that was huge help for me because I realized that I could do it and that I could be a new Ray. And that old Ray could go and all those traumas could go. But staying to this, they've created this compass to the north, the Jaguar, being with no fear in this world or the next. I was scared, I have to admit. I was really scared when I got those news. And it was 1, 2, 3 years that I lived in fear of losing life. And when I heard this, that I can walk with a Jaguar, you all know I walk the Jaguar path, right? I still, it's right here, my Jaguar. I still walk with my Jaguar. And I'll come back to that because it's important, but just let me close this compass and say that then we went to the north, hummingbird, colibri, bringing back the sweetness, realizing hummingbirds, you know, they migrate, they cross from Florida, they go to the Gulf of Mexico. That's more than 2,000 miles of a flight for a bird this big. And yet they know when they arrive on the other side, there's flowers that are waiting for them. So not only are they teaching us to remember nectar and sweetness of life, but they're teaching us to remember that even through the most difficult parts and crossings of our life. And that was for me crossing the Gulf of Mexico. Those years of not knowing, of being in this place of dis-ease, of having been given a diagnosis that I won't live. That was one of the biggest, most hardest crossings. But when I learned about the hummingbird, I said, wait, there might be the other side. I might starting to see Yucatan or Peru, this other shore. And there's other flowers, all these beautiful flowers that I did find. And then when we went to the east, condor, listen to what these beautiful things they found from these animals and how we can create these blueprints of being. I can rise above and fly like the condor and see the greater picture of my life. And when I do these practices, when I find myself in new kind of like situations where I'm doing this new, I don't know, being in a new school or doing a new agreement, I always come above. I always come above because sometimes I want to clench on something. I really like something and I'd really like to have it. And when I do that, then I start losing my clarity above it. Does anyone else ever do that? Or is it just the three of us? Okay. Just to know, just the three of us. But when I now knew that I could rise up to condor, I started seeing from condor where I was without being that clenched and entangled emotionally. And I could start making, and I did start making some better decisions. I felt Mother Earth as a supporter, as nourishment, and Father, Son. So basically, this is a new paradigm and a way to find bearings. And that's what exactly I had lost. When all that was taken away in the Middle Ages, centuries before I even arrived here, I arrived and I was a guy in the modern age. I had a cool motorcycle. I was a photographer. Things were great. But there were way not enough. I was a good guy. I was never a bad guy. But it was not enough. My goodness wasn't helping anyone, right? And my heart, my soul was yearning to be of service, to be a healer, to share with others, to be connected with Source, to know all this. So the suffering there, that lack of connection. And I feel, again, that was a time that I was alone. And I feel this time, it's happening to all of us. There's this like, well, what's the reality after this period of time that we don't know how long it is? And I want to share that I feel really clear to me that my emptiness back then brought me to that dis-ease, and that this emptiness of the materialism that had gone out of control brought this breakdown. So now we need to rebuild a new reality and a new paradigm to live by. And that's why I say it's so important now more than ever, because these people kept alive for 500 years, hidden in the mountains, these treasures for us, which are a map and the compass, literally, to start beginning to understand where the north is and what it means, where the south is and what it means, to start literally getting some bearings, both in the actual geographical part of the world, of the planet, and in our own life. So we have the compass. They give us a map of tools that encompass, pun intended, that encompass that the reality is that the feminine is one of the most important things, where else we would not exist. So we should be in that chemical realization of gratitude towards the feminine, and that specific chemistry. When I'm grateful to my grandmother and to my mother, and I'm grateful to the moon, there's a chemistry that's specific in my body that informs my kidneys. This is mechanical. I'm talking about how it really informs the way I am, the chemistry I have. I am a person that bows to the feminine. I am a person that learns from the animals, changed my chemistry, because what happened is that we pushed the animals away, and then we didn't have any point of reference on how to be. We were not allowed to. We didn't even dare, because again, remember, we would be kicked out of the tribe. So our brain didn't have that calculation. Ever since I started working with power animals, there's just so much love and affection in my life. There's so much sweetness. Does anyone, who has a pet? Let me see hands. Who has a pet? Okay, and if I ask, usually it's about at least half the people. And if I ask you, and I know we don't have an open back and forth, but pets give us the deepest healing that any other creature or any God can give us. Affection, affection, affection. The wagging of the tail, the purring of the cat. There's no deeper healing vibration than that. Yeah, I can see some smiles and some nodding. And I know we all have the feeling. And talking about the mechanisms, feel that warm, fuzzy feeling inside. You're feeling it physically, correct? And this is where the magic starts taking place, when you're feeling it physically. And I'll ask you, because I came to Mexico and to Peru seeking for shamans, yet I was a skeptic. And I still encourage everyone to be a skeptic, and I'll do it again because I'm a Greek. Skeptic is a Greek word, and it means a thinker. And I encourage everyone always to think. And like the Buddha said, only when something makes sense to you, only then should you take it in. Should you make it a way of your being. So here, bringing it back, is that any feeling, sensation that we have from creating a different structure of how we think of the world automatically changes our whole endocrine system. And the endocrine system is what is responsible for our immune system, for how our autoimmune diseases work, for how cancers work, how health works. So when I live and I am in respect and in balance with the feminine, when I live and I adore and I bow to the animals and I have an altar with the animals and I'm in awe with the animals, and when I believe and I know I'm connected with magic, and I never was disconnected, I just didn't know. I just didn't know. When all these three come to place, I live in a very different environment. Slowly through my trainings and through going back and forth to Peru and spending months there, and then eventually also bringing the shamans to the United States, bring Don Sebastian to the United States, bring Don Manuel to Greece. I only changed the inside environment and I changed my outside environment. And about 5 years later, a parenthesis and a disclaimer, I was diagnosed in 2003 and was given 3 months of life. In 2004, I left Greece and I went to Johns Hopkins and I was diagnosed again. And the doctor there raised his hands and said, take care of your affairs. And the disclaimer comes into a few months later in 2005, I had one surgery. The idea was that there was just too many surgeries because it had spread out. I did do one surgery and I'm grateful. And I'm grateful both to Dr. Pinto, my surgeon from the National Institute of Health. And I'm grateful to a shaman that I met in Mexico who I never saw again. He rattled in my body. He rattled and rattled and rattled and rattled. And every time he would come to the right side, he would be like, and I was like, oh my God, he's going to say the same. I don't have a chance. I don't have a chance. He said, hermanito, he says, there's no problem. Here and here we could work. You just keep on coming back and I will heal it with you for you. But this over here is a problem. You have to go to the shamans up north. And because I already was traveling throughout different countries and places, I was like, north, I envisioned myself with a sled with 25 dogs in front of me looking for the Inuit shamans. And I said, where? In Alaska? And he looked at me as if I was a fool. And he said, no, hermanito, in Estados Unidos, in the United States. I said, there's no shamans in the United States. He said, there are. They're called surgeons. And that was magic. That was magic because I was coming from Chinese medicine. I was coming from a moment of revolution in my life and saying, you know what? I have to change everything and I can't believe in the Western world anymore. And he brought that down because that was holding me back. And I know that I had not done that one surgery, I would not be alive today. That's a very big tumor and the beginning of everything, really, where everything metastasized from. So that needed to go. I learned later on from the shamans that even a tumor, even a growth, is an entity and it wants to live and thrive. So this tenant had to be evacuated, had to be, what do you call it? Kicked out. What's the word I'm looking for? Kicked out. He was not welcome in the building. And then I went back. So there was like a period from 2005 after my surgery for every 3 months, 6 months, every year, for many years, I'd go and do my post-op CAT scans and MRIs. But in the meantime, I would be down in the jungle doing all this work, doing ayahuasca as my chemotherapy, and doing and learning, becoming the shaman to heal myself. And we all watched in the MRIs and the CAT scans, things become smaller and things disappear. And then saying in the National Institute of Health, it was probably a problem with a CAT scan. And I'm like, probably. It was probably that. I'm going to come back and bring it back to that and say that while we're all watching things, and because there's so much up now, and what is up really now, and I have no sides to take, and because I don't believe in sides anymore. I've stepped out of collective consciousness back then in 2006, 2007, and I'm watching both myself, how I belong and how I come out again, right? Because I'm, of course, still love both the modern world and the jungles. But I want to say that we're in need of a new paradigm, and we all need a new compass. And what I came across is these people that, again, had saved this for us. And it was not taken from the conquistadors, and it was not wiped out from the Spanish Inquisition. And none of them were put to the pyre because they were gone up in the mountains, and no one knew they existed. And only in the late 60s, they start coming down from the mountains. They start coming down to Cusco. And as the shamans come down to Cusco, I mean, even Don Sebastian and Don Francisco, they came down in their late 20s and early 30s. Like, I'm talking to Sebastian and Francisco, and I said, how was it when you saw for the first time a car in your life? And he still laughs and blushes about it. He still blushes about it. This almighty guys and humorous guys, they kind of like get a little nervous and they blush. It's like, it was weird. And electricity and running water, because still in the Cairo Nation, electricity just arrived last year. And I don't know if I'm happy about it. The road and electricity. So I have mixed feelings about that. I'm happy in one way, but they've still, that's another matter we'll see in the next decades to come. They have come and they still have this. And I have been honored. I have been honored because I was taken in. I felt that I was adopted by them. And I was named and I was initiated as a Pampo Messiah, the healer of the valley, the beginner. And I was given the Pampo Messiah rights, which initiated me as an earth keeper. And I learned two things as becoming a Pampo Messiah: that I am responsible for everything that I do in relationship to Mother Earth, first of all. And second of all, I'm responsible for everything that happens to me. No one else is. I can't give that to anyone else. I have to take care first of my mother, and then I have to take care of myself. And that I have the strength, and I have the knowledge, and I have the depth, because it came with me. It's inside me. It's installed, pre-installed. And later on, a few years later, I became an alto messiah. They said, you can heal others now. We want you to go out and give healings. And now you have 10, 12 tools. I don't remember what I had at that time. I could use a rattle. I could use a feather. I could use a crystal and remove and change things. And as I did it, I watched accelerated healing happening to other people. And still am in awe. I just did a session not an hour ago. And I'm like in awe watching the sessions actually offer such accelerated healing. Because they offer avenues that we just don't have, we had lost. And when I'm in despair in the Western world because I had a breakup or the divorce that I was going through, or I lost my job, or I had a loss in family, there's tools that we don't have because they were taken away. And these tools come back. I can actually do a cord cutting and let go of my previous relationship and find my center once again and start life again and be new again. I can do a fire ceremony and burn the old contracts that I had. I've learned so many tools that gave me the opportunity to heal things in me that healed my cancer. And as I healed my cancer, I grew in understanding what was missing from that previous paradigm I lived in, my own neural pathways, my map of the brain. And because, and it's funny, I want to look here. My brother might be here. My brother is here that said this. He will know who he is. I was talking to a student and beloved friend of mine for years now, friend, and he said, Ray, you have to excuse me about the shamanic work. Give me a little time because I'm a recovering Catholic. And I said, oh, my dear brother, that's nothing. I'm a recovering atheist. Because my biggest wall was I came from an a-religious, let me say, family. So to believe in the divine was really hard for me. And for him, it was because he had his thing, whatever it was, whatever that means for him. But the essence is that what I was awakened to and will ask you to feel inside you, next to that fuzzy feeling we all feel when we say, how do you feel when you're holding your dog, your cat, watching a beautiful animal? That awe is the awe of knowing that we're connected to the divine, that this light, this reason we're opening our eyes, the electricity that's running through my own body is all divine energy. I'm an expression of God. And earlier I said, I bow to Mother Mary and I bow to Shakti. I bow to St. Francis and I bow to Hanuman. And I've come to the moment that I said, I don't know if I'm very religious or not religious at all. I don't know what that makes me. But if you come to our house, you'll see our altar has many, many gods. And I try to study more and more moments of Christ and conversations he had. I try to study what Hanuman, the monkey god, did. I'm going to fast forward a little bit in light of having 9 minutes to cover another 2,000 years of shamanic history. And I'm going to say that the Cairos kept this safe for all of us. I eventually was initiated as an alto messiah and as a Kerak Aluek. Kerak Aluek is a visionary and a teacher of nations. I take this role as something very important that I need to carry out, and that I am a servant to. I'm not a leader, I'm a servant. I have been given the amazing, I bow to this, I am humbled and I am honored to be given this responsibility to share the Cairo Nation's people's words. And I'm going to give you 3 words to bring it home. Aini is a Quechua word. Quechua is their language. And Aini means reciprocity, means being in correct relationship to. Fill in the blank. Aini. Being in correct relationship to. It is exactly like that first sentence of the Yoga Sutras, which says, now begins the practice of yoga. And for all you yogis out there, that means now I'm checking in with myself. Rather than saying, oh, I don't like the political situation, I don't like the geographical situation, I don't like the weather, or I don't like the way a person talked to me. We pause all that And we say, where am I at? Where am I coming from? And only then, if I am coming from a correct relationship, will I know what's happening outside, will really matter. Because as Kabir said it, I used to be smart and I wanted to change the world. Now I'm wise, I want to change myself. So aini, this beautiful catch-all word, means in correct relationship too, which means I'm not checking and seeing if people are right or wrong. I'm constantly checking in. Am I taking care of myself? And am I putting myself in a situation that is balanced and correct for me? And am I giving and offering enough to everyone around me? And that concept, I lived in lack before that. I lived in lack of spirituality. I lived in lack of magic. I lived in lack of respect. All of a sudden, I lived in this place that I knew I was like literally marinating in all these things. And I lived in abundance. I lived in abundance, and we do. When we stop looking for nourishment to come from the outside, we realize that there is a well and spring of energy coming from the inside outward that is not only enough for us, for our immune system, for our endocrine system, for our nervous system. It's not only enough to control our mind to not have those silly negative thoughts. Does anyone ever have silly negative thoughts? It's the three of us again. I knew that. No, just kidding. If I have that abundance of energy inside me, those thoughts begin to fade away. I can see it. It's like, oh, okay, it's that part of Ray that still needs something. And it comes up. And I love that Ray too. Because I have plenty to give. I have plenty that's coming up. Then I learned this other word, munai, love. But guess what? I was looking for love, and I was looking for someone to love me, and I needed that love, and I was just looking. Anyone else? I see hands already going up. Okay. But munai means stay as you are. And munai means I am love. In other words, instead of saying I love you to someone, you say stay exactly as you are. And I don't know if there's a better way to describe love. Like I accept you, I admire you. You're awesome, just the way the moment I met you, probably the moment you were born, probably the moment that I just saw you for the first time. You're awesome. I accept you. I admire you. I have affection for you. And that just changed the way I related to people because I was really, to be honest, and that's where it was. I was needing love, and actually I was getting a little bit upset because I wanted it this way and not that way. And that way really didn't work. And that way really hurt my love. And you ever had that feeling, sensation? I realized that love is within. And not only am I not in lack now, I am a spring of love. And one thing I learned years later is that actually love runs the show. Love is the energy that keeps all the planets in orbit. Love is the electromagnetic field that keeps the atoms in orbit. Love is what makes your endocrine system move. Love is the building block of molecules. And it is only us when we were disconnected from the feminine, from the masculine, from the feminine, from the magic, and from the animals, we were disconnected from love, and we were disconnected from the memory that that is a fact. You are love. And it's awesome to have someone to say, I love you. Still is awesome, of course. But it's so awesome to know that you're love and it's not a need and that you don't not have it or you need to tweak it because it's so much bigger than all of us. So munai is that quality of love. Horpichai. There's several other words, and I'm going to bring it home with these two words, aini and munai. May you all be blessed with aini. May you always feel that you're walking in correct relationship to. May you all always have munai and be aware, awakened, celebrating that spring of love that you are and that we are, and feel it, that we have it, that we're receiving it in every breath. And that there are tools. There are tools not only to learn how to open sacred space so I can get my bearings, but there's whole maps that we can download in our brain, software that was kept secret, literally at 18,000 feet, that we can re-download now and upgrade the way of our being because those maps were taken away. And Thank all the gods and goddesses. They were saved. So the work of the Cairos and the work of the shamans around the world is still alive. And the shaman within you, that well of love, is still alive. And I invite you to look more into your magic, into your relationship with the feminine, your relationship with the power animals. And for those of you who are interested, I invite you to dive deeper into our Wednesday nights that are on. I see some of you are already a part of the Wednesday night series, 6 Wednesdays. You can still register and get number 1 that we did last week. It's a really similar, and going back a little bit, last Wednesday I talked about prehistoric, when did the first shamans arrive and how did this anthropologically happen? And I find it fascinating, this story. So if you do listen to the recording, please do. And I'll tell you why I find it fascinating, because I didn't download it by the internet. I downloaded it in the jungle while I was in a fire ceremony with a tribe. And I realized what happened 20,000 years ago, because I was there. Because the tribes in the jungle, the people that I work with, the Shipibo, they've changed nothing. There's no electricity or cars there. They still use the same bows and arrows. They still have the magic and the love and the sweetness and the power. The Munai and the Aini. I hope this has been at least informative, and I hope that part that is informative is a map that recaptures neural pathways in the brain and maybe fills in some dots that were missing from the map. I hope that it brings you strength and it allows you to allow your magic to come forth. I believe we are all healers, and I share these tools, the specific tools, with the science behind them, because I believe that it's time for us to rewrite our history. I believe that the other story, the paradigm, obviously ended. It ran out of whatever it was running on. And we need to recreate, and each one of us has to recreate it, because if each one of us finds back that connection to our heart, we will all change the planet by changing the collective consciousness. We can't do that on a collective consciousness scale. It's not about changing the world, it's about changing ourselves. Even Mother Teresa said, if you want to change the world, go home and love your family. And that's what the Cairos are saying, and that's what I'm sharing. How can we all come back to that love, to love ourselves, to love every person that's in our lives, and change the paradigm? And I know it, that if we all do it individually, it's going to happen on a global level. We will change the collective consciousness, and that will make everything else change, to become healing, to become evolved way of being. I invite you to close your eyes so we can close with a short meditation. And bringing your hands to your heart. I invite you to feel love for yourself. And I want you to feel, not think, feel sensation of love within your heart. And bow your chin to your heart to thank yourself for everything that you do for your healing and your evolution. And from my heart, I hope that our hour together has been healing for all of us present, has been a way for all of us to evolve, a way for all of us to connect and be first spark of change towards bringing back these ways of the planet, ways that were here before politics and before religions, ways that are deeply human, deeply mammalian, deeply divinely earthly. I hope again that we've all received the healing and empowerment. I bow to all of you, and I bow deep to St. Francis, that's been a guide in my life, and Christ, along with the Cairos and all those who have shown me a new way. Namaste. And gently inhale and open your eyes. Namaste. Namaste. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate your presence. And I hope this was meaningful and was a spark of light and love for all. If you have any questions, please, please, please send an email. I know with several of you, I already see we're already in conversation. We're practicing yoga Mondays and Wednesdays. If you're not on the Wednesday night, or if you don't know about the training coming up, please check it out on the website. Jaguarpath.com. Thank you. Jaguarpath.com. Lots of love. Namaste and Horpichai. Have a wonderful night.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
The recording will come to all of you. Bye. Thank you.
Thanks, Ray. Good to see you.
Thank you, brothers and my sisters, beloved ones. Namaste. Good night.
Night.